Welcome to Becoming a Cook. I'm Charlie Wetzel. Today I want to teach you how to brine and roast a turkey. If you're starting with a frozen turkey, you want to get that about 5 days before you're going to brine it if it's a, say, 20-pound turkey, because you need that time for it to defrost in the refrigerator. If you start with a fresh turkey that has not been frozen, then you're ready to go. Now I'm going to make the brine, which is really pretty simple. I've got a gallon of water here. To that I'm adding 1 cup of table salt, a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. This is dark brown. As you can see, it's firmly packed. I've picked thyme, sage, and rosemary from my garden. I'm going to drop those in there. And then I want to add some peppercorns. So I don't know, what is that, about 20? I'm simply going to bring this to a boil, and then I'm going to add ice to it to cool it down. I'm putting that on high heat just to get the sugar and salt to dissolve and for the herbs to get incorporated in the water. So I've pulled the giblet pack out of this. It was not much of a giblet pack, it just had a gizzard in it. I'm going to take this plastic piece off. It seems like the turkeys all have these. And I'm going to search. The neck is in here. You can see there's still just a little bit of ice clinging to this, which is fine. You just don't want the thing to be frozen solid, because when you brine it, you need the brining liquid to penetrate the turkey, and if it's frozen solid, it's not going to do that. All right, so this has come to a boil, and I don't need to cook it for any length of time. I'm just trying to release all those flavors into here, and I'm trying to make sure everything has melted. When I gave it a stir, I didn't feel any salt or sugar on the bottom, so that's good. Now I'm going to put this into a larger pot, and to this 1 gallon of hot water, I'm going to add a gallon of ice. Here's half. And here's the other half. So now I'm going to stir this, and the ice is going to melt for the most part, but there'll still be a little bit in there. The reason I'm doing that is I'm cooling it down, because you never would want to put a cold turkey into hot water, because it would start cooking. And you always want to keep your food either above 140 or below 40 degrees. I want this to get down to below 40, and I want to keep it there while I'm brining the turkey. I've got my handy dandy quick read thermometer. So this is about 60 degrees, and it's still dropping. So I'm going to be pretty close to 40 degrees in here. I just want to take this turkey and put it in my liquid. And I've done this enough times that I know that this large stock pot will accommodate a 20-pound turkey with 2 gallons of liquid, which is what you've got between the water that we heated and the ice, and this just barely fits underneath. I'm going to put this in the refrigerator for 24 hours. Now you may be saying to yourself, I don't have a stock pot that big, which is true for most people. All you need to do is get some kind of container that you can put this in where it's going to be completely immersed. You may have a rubber container or some kind of a storage bin that's spick and span clean, that's, hasn't been used for any other purpose. A smaller ice chest will work. I've done this in an ice chest before. The thing is, you want this to be completely covered, and you want it to sit for 24 hours at 40 degrees or lower. Obviously, you don't want it to freeze. Then it'll start to pick up the flavors of the herbs and the salt and the sugar, and it stays more moist than it will if you don't brine it. I'm going to grab a plate, put this on it, I'm going to stick it in the fridge. I'm doing this on a Tuesday. I'm going to take it out Wednesday in the afternoon or evening. I'm going to let it sit overnight, and then Thursday morning it's going in the oven. One of the challenges with this is having the refrigerator space. So for years I put it in the basement refrigerator. We now have a refrigerator in the pantry. And that was one of the things we did when we redesigned the kitchen, was have space for something like this, because it was a bear carrying that up and down the stairs, trust me. If you live in a cold climate and you know it's going to stay below 40 outside, as long as you had this covered in such a way that nothing could get into it, you could put it in your garage. If you are doing it in an ice chest, you could put ice in it in addition, but it will start to dilute. So the best thing you could do is get cold packs and drop a bunch of those in there with it. I just pulled this out of the fridge. It's been in for 24 hours. Now I want to go ahead and drain this and pull the turkey out and let it start drying. And this turkey was submerged the whole time. The cavity is full of liquid. All right. The first thing I want to do, there's a little bit of extra skin here that I don't really need, so I'm just going to take that off. And then there's fat here. I think I'm going to go ahead and just pull that off, but I'm going to stick it in my pan. This, by the way, is my roasting pan that I'm going to use tomorrow. So these, I just want to fold under so that they aren't sticking up. That'll keep them, when they're in the oven, from getting too crispy. And then I want to dry this a bit. So I'm just mopping any liquid off of this that I can. And I'm actually going to dry out the cavity a little bit as well. I'm going to go ahead and tie these legs now so I don't have to do it in the morning. So I just need some butcher twine. You can buy this on Amazon. You can use any kind of string you want, I guess. I like this because it's thicker. It's actually purpose-made butcher twine. If you don't have a rack in your roasting pan, that's okay. For years I roasted mine without one because I didn't have one. So this is going back in the fridge, uncovered. I want the skin to dry out. Next thing is it's going in the oven. The turkey's been in the refrigerator for 12 hours. It's really nice and dry, so that's going to be good for the skin. I'm going to take this out because it has drained some more water here. I'm just going to give this a rinse and a wipe. This is going to go back in. I rinsed that because I'm assuming there's salt in that because of the salt water. I'm going to hit it with a little bit of Pam just so that it doesn't stick in the bottom. And then I just want to put some butter on this and rub this into the skin. This is not going to look very pretty, but I'm just trying to get a little bit of the flavor here. So I've just taken a few pats of butter and sat them out on the counter to get semi-soft. And this guy in here, and we're ready to put it in the oven. So the oven is on 325. I've got it on convection, and I think we'll be ready somewhere between 3.5 and 4.5 hours. The tables say 4.5, but I think it'll take less time than that, and I'll check it periodically. The turkey's been in for 2 hours now, and I want to take a look at it. That's looking pretty good. I've been checking my temperature because now it's up too high again. My temperature keeps creeping up on me to 350, so I've dropped it down, but the turkey's looking pretty good. You can see in here, see all the blood in the cavity? So we know we're still a ways away. So I'm continuing to cook the rest of Thanksgiving dinner. The turkey's been in for 3 hours and 10 minutes. I want to check it. I'm going to go ahead and see what the temperature is for the first time. So it's looking good. It's got a nice color. You've got to check the dark meat rather than the white meat because it takes longer to cook. If you can get this up to 155, then in the 30 minutes that it rests, it should come up another 10 degrees to 165. So let's see where we're at. And I'm trying to hit meat without hitting bone in the dark area. This is already reading 160.
Oh my.
Yep. This turkey is cooked. Because this is the first time I'm using this oven, even though I had it set down around 325, it kept coming up to 350. So this is cooked faster than we anticipated it. So I'm now going to let it rest because it's actually a little bit overcooked already. But I'm going to make it a bucket gravy, so it'll be all right. I'm going to go ahead and put my sides in. They usually need almost an hour. So I'm actually going to end up letting this turkey rest longer than I normally would. But that's the thing with a holiday meal like this, you've got to be a little bit flexible. I want to go ahead and get this out of the pan. The pan's still really hot, and I don't want this to keep cooking. I wouldn't be as worried about it had I taken this out earlier, but I kind of missed my window. I've got to get this to separate, and I probably should have sprayed the rack with Pam too, but I forgot. There we go. All right, so now I'm not an expert at carving a turkey, but inevitably I'm the one who does the cutting. So I'm going to show you what I do, or at least I'm going to start so you get a sense of how turkey's done. I usually start by taking off one of these drumsticks, and this turkey's been sitting for 45 minutes. You can probably see there's steam coming up, so it's still plenty hot. I usually like to leave that whole. In theory, somebody could eat it. Typically nobody does, and I usually end up cutting the meat off of it afterwards, but I like to leave it out there for presentation. I know there's a wishbone in here, so I'm actually going to take this skin off here, and I'm going to go looking for that wishbone. I'm feeling for it with my fingers. I'm cutting on both sides of it, and then I want to get my knife cutting down through here. If I can take this wishbone out, it's going to make the carving a little bit easier. With a little luck, I can pull that out. If I can't get it out whole, I can take it out in pieces. If you get it out whole, somebody can pull that. I'm actually going to work on this side. I'd normally do this side first, but let me do this side since it's going to be easier for you to see. I want to get this wing out of the way. From here, the grain of the turkey runs that way. So if you can do some slicing here, you're trying to go across that grain a little bit, and it's kind of difficult to do on these first slices. This is cooked more than I normally would like this to be. So next year, when I use this stove again, I'm going to make some adjustments. I may need to not use convection. I may need to set it at 300. I may need to plan for it to cook an hour and a half faster than the typical time. It's just another argument for great gravy. You can use a fork with this to hold this, but it's a lot more difficult. And as long as you've washed your hands, this is okay. So I can keep cutting this, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut some of the dark meat just so you can see. What I usually do is I'll take this thigh off of the bird, and then I want to cut this dark meat. I usually just put the skin on the platter. Some people want to eat that. It's a little bit tough. It's not as good as, say, chicken skin. I'm just cutting pieces of dark meat. These are more chunks than slices. This is the easier side because there's more meat on this side. And you can see this is a little bit nicer cut. Sometimes I'll cut one side, do all the white meat and all the dark meat on that side, and I'll actually serve it at the table with half a turkey there and then everything laid out. That's kind of pretty. I kind of messed that up on this side because I was switching sides, hoping that you'd be able to see it a little bit more easily. That's the way I cut up a turkey. There are probably people who do it better than I do, but this works for us. That's how to cook a turkey. I hope you try it, and I hope you do a little bit better on the timing than I did this time. Okay. All right, everybody to camera?
Yep.
Happy Thanksgiving from Becoming a Cook and the Wetzel family.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Okay.
All
We
right.
need cranberry sauce.
All right.
And strawberry sauce.
All right.